Welcome to the 588th Imagine Greater Buffalo program and our 209th YouTube production hosted by our culturally rich downtown Buffalo and Erie County Public Library. Thanks for joining us today. This program is created by the Center for the Study of Art, Architecture, History, and Nature, or C-SAAHN as I like to pronounce the acronym, and ImagineLifelongLearning.com. Now, before we get started, just a little housekeeping. Everyone watching will be muted and your video turned off. If you have a question or comment, please type the question into the chat box and we'll go through them at the end of the presentation as time allows. We are recording this program so you can watch it again later on the Central Library's Facebook page and YouTube channel, and we certainly hope you share the link with others. Now on to our featured speaker. Joining us today is Louis Cannata, the restoration manager of the E.B. Green and Sons Mayfair Lane, the Buffalo Castle Complex Restoration Project. He's the restoration manager for that. Louis is the owner of North Edge Construction Services, established in 2006. North Edge Construction Services is a boutique contractor specializing in atypical projects, working on perhaps 2 to 3 a year. Current projects include the new Bill Stadium and a banquet facility on Grand Island. Louis is a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces, having been a military intelligence officer and having served 3 years of active duty during the Gulf War. He is also a full-time professor at Erie Community College in the business administration area. Louis, welcome to the Imagine program. Thank you for your service, and been looking forward to hearing about a restoration project that most will never see because it's hidden from view. So you're about to share images that, as I say, most people in Buffalo have probably never seen of Buffalo. Louis, take it away.
Well, thank you, Dennis. Not sure if I'm trying to get the right thing here. Thank you very much, first of all, for having me on your show. Dennis, when Dennis and I met back in the spring, we met actually after a mass one morning, and it was neat because we just got together and started talking. I go to mass with a group of guys, all of us kind of construction guys, and Dennis asked what projects we're working on, et cetera, and I mentioned Mayfair Lane, and light bulb went off, and here I am, a year and a half later, and I get to present on your show. So thank you very much, Dennis. I'm not going to go long today. I basically want to explain Mayfair Lane, go through our construction project, give you some of the history of it. I have some video that I'll share and some pictures. And hopefully you'll enjoy it and learn about Mayfair Lane. So speaking of Mayfair Lane, it is known as a hidden gem in Buffalo, New York. And to be quite honest, when I was approached to run this project, I, being a lifelong Buffalo resident, I didn't know anything about it or that it existed. So before I share my screen, I will say Mayfair Lane is located off of North Street, and it's between Delaware and Elmwood. And right in downtown Buffalo, a beautiful area. And again, there's this little tucked away village and or lane that, hopefully, well, I don't want to upset the residents too much, but because it is a private community that someone can go and look. So I'm going to actually share my screen here. All right. And again, here, I have to move I believe you can see my cursor. So this is the layout of Mayfair Lane. In the back is a Mayfair Castle, which is a home. And then there are 20 units, homes, that line each way. This is looking north on off of North Street. Again, Delaware on the right, Elmwood on the on the left. The interesting thing about Mayfair Lane was that it was constructed in and around 1926, 1929, which is about 100 years ago. And it was constructed by E.B. Green, famous Buffalo architect. And it was interesting. The story goes that he constructed it for his son, who was handicapped. And E.B. Green, Edward, never lived in the castle. He actually lived in one of the adjoining units. So part of the history of it was that the motivation for Mayfair Lane for building this is that Green had traveled to Europe, and I guess he loved traveling to Europe. And I myself kind of say, nowadays we want to go to Europe, and we get on a plane and go whatever it takes, 8 hours or so, and we're there. Well, in those days, it took about over a week, on a vessel to get there. So I found it really kind of neat that, he took his time to go there, spend his time, and still was kind of fresh enough coming back and was affected enough to say, hey, I'm gonna build this this complex. So the architectural significance is, and I'll talk a little bit about it. Is at this time, this is state of the art, 1927, 29, we're going to say. It basically was the newest thing out there. So when I say thing, I apologize. Basically, you have homes and you have a lane that represents England. And as you'll see some of the pictures going ahead, and I'll probably get started there in a minute. But you also have an underground parking garage. So there's underground parking. And above is the lane, which is walkable. We'll talk a little bit about that more. I will say, I do have to throw it out there, that the residents of Mayfair Lane, thank you all so much for your patience. And I kind of joke about it when I was approached for this project. I was approached, and I'll talk a little bit about it later. I had no idea that the residents would be living there while we renovated this parking garage and lane above it. So a big thank you to the residents, especially Mike and Kim Conrad. Kim actually gave me some information that I'm going to share with you in a minute. And I do want to say, not myself, but the project did receive an award, preservation award for the best unique preservation effort in Buffalo from a historic preservation group, which was pretty interesting. So with that being said, this is interesting. This is an article from 1930, which is an article from 1930, and it talks about Mayfair Lane. And if you see here, Mayfair Lane, a new idea in the commuting plan. And there's Edward Green, E.B. Green, and if you see, this is very similar to where we are now. It was very interesting. They were the first people to have like linoleum, and it talks about, hey, here's the newest kind of stuff out there. Here's another picture of it. In fact, a little bit of an advertising here. Basically what they're saying is it provides different levels for automobile and pedestrian use. And there's another article, I don't have it, but it talked about how, I shared it with a friend. It said, well, with the increased usage of cars, because again, there weren't too many cars around. There were obviously in that time, but with the increase in cars, this had its point. So this is Mayfair Lane today. And here's the entrance off of North Street. And basically, before I get going, I am get going now. Apologize. The site itself is 100 years old. For myself, it's really neat to be chopping through concrete that was, put there 100 years ago. It was basically in need of a structural like rehab, a little bit of a not even a facelift, because we put back exactly the way it was. I jokingly say when I'm 100 years old, I'm going to need some kind of structural help. So, it's interesting to have this, not by any neglect or anything simple. It's simply just time. So I want to throw a shout out to TRM Architecture. They were the lead architects on this job. Matt Mascotti, who I'm very proud to say is a great friend of mine. Matt is about as passionate as I know, especially on the architectural side and the historical side, to put together a project like this. And he assembled a wonderful team, which I was fortunately enough to be part of. AJ Petrilli on the structural side, our structural engineer, and various other specialists there. So appreciate Matt, and big send out to you. So here is the lane itself. I will tell you the project as I get started. I'm trying to mute this here. And I want to let everybody know when I took these videos, I had no idea I'd be sharing them with anybody. So I moved kind of fast. These are just for a year and a half. I'm basically taking things so I would remind myself what's going on. I'm going to show this one quickly here. In the back, you can see the lane with flagstone. Flagstone walkway, and you have the castle in the background. And I'm going to go back to well, I'm gonna hit it later. What were the problems? What were the problems? Were structurally, steel was failing. Again, not by any misuse or anything. The concrete, basically, you have an an upstairs on top of a parking garage, and the waterproofing membrane was compromised. The picture you see right now is what we were able to kind of recover from that membrane. And that causes a lot of problems when there's water or snow like we get in Buffalo. That water seeps through and you have a structural issue. So we were there to make repairs to it. And it eventually, as we found out when we were working in there, the repairs kind of numbered many, and we decided actually we had to drop the whole lane. Again, the project itself is difficult, and then we also have people, residents living there. Again, thank you so much, Mayfair residents. And you're on North Street, which is really busy. It's a tough area and how we're going to access things. So here I'm showing a little more video of that membrane, and I think you get a feel for what we are faced with. Here, the first thing we did was we put walkways because there's downstairs entrances and there's upstairs entrances. It's egress. So we had to build walkways over these wonderful gardens that the residents have. The walkway is for egress. So if there was a fire or someone had to get out, not only can they get out underneath, but they can get out above. Here's a better shot. Again, this is very early on. You can see our walkways. We're preparing for stuff. And here's underneath. And I think I kind of highlighted some, if you could see the steel, again, not necessarily falling down immediately, but you can kind of catch some of the issues. In fact, the residents had put some carports there just to remain, to protect their cars if something was going, if there was a problem there. Here you get a little better picture of it. Make sure I mute myself. There is some fallen debris, and you can see right there. Sorry about that. You can see right there the compromised deck, water going through it, and not a very safe thing. So we had, again, the great team at TRM and structural engineers go through and really highlight where the potential issues were, and we were to take care of them. So here's back up on top, the existing planters. I do want to try to stop right about here. Oh, I can't stop it there. No? I'm going to try to stop it. These are, I'm going to bounce back a little bit. These are, they're called, and yes, I'm going to my cheat notes. They're called Lasuga lanterns. They are Japanese. So here we are, and for myself going, what are these Japanese lanterns doing here? We have an English inspired courtyard, very Tudor, very English Gothic style. Then you have these courtyards. And I did a little research, and actually in the 20s, Buffalo was honestly one of the top cities around, hopefully like we are now. And it was very chic. It was very cool to have Japanese art, Japanese culture as part of your in your homes or in your gardens. So Edward and or his landscaping team decided they were going to light this at night using these lanterns, and it's a really neat effect. You can see that we try to keep the shape of them very well. I'm going to keep going forward here. Again, you're looking at covering, haven't started heavy construction yet, but all the prep beforehand. We were, many challenges. First of all, that machinery up there was pushing it as far as weight. Can't have so much weight on the deck. Here, if you can see underneath, very big concern for everyone involved, and we knew that going along. Here's our underground. I'm going to try and mute myself. See that? And here we're into deck removal. So now we start construction. I hope your sound isn't too crazy there, but now we had to, you can see, penetrate the deck. I went out And knowing one of the best of the best, so I'm going to throw him a shout out to Pinto Construction, specifically Jim Panapino, the principal there. Pinto Construction just has a wonderful reputation, and they did just a great job for us. On the boot there of that picture is Jim's dad, George, who again I'm very proud to say is a close friend of mine. And George is pushing. Well, I think he's over 80 years old and is out there and just loves what he does, and he does it well. George keeps us safe with our safety, because as you can see, once that deck was dropped, and I think as a video, you can see worker over here. Basically, that's a 12-foot drop. Very, very, the whole project, very, dangerous, I will say. And got a little comment on that. Here we are underneath, as you can see, the deterioration. These are shoring to make sure that the weight could be held when we do it. Here's a shot from underneath. My voice there, and kind of the shoring. So an interesting we did, thinking of the residents, we basically dropped the deck and we had trucks, and we had to be careful of the height of a truck. Couldn't have big trucks. So you had numerous trucks coming out of North Street, because you couldn't put one big truck. You had to have smaller ones. And the Pinto guys, of course, came up with a great plan. They basically moved the truck as the deck was being dropped. And for the residents, we watered it down, keep the dust and all the particles out of the air. And it really worked out well. We really kind of caused some issues there, but it was great. After that, we went into the steel. We had Atlas Steel come out and basically grind out and weld, making steel repairs. Here we are in the front, for all you Buffalo residents, a beautiful North Street with its trees that unfortunately we had to cut down. We didn't lose any trees. We cut some branches. And of course, we went through the city and had the city arborist give us recommendations. We needed to clear it so we could get our construction in there. This is a shout out to George. I have to thank him very much. He basically kept myself in line. He's a mentor of mine. I will say there were over 150 workers on this job, and there wasn't one accident, which was which was a really great thing. In fact, there was one accident, and that was me. I was the only person, and I fell on the job, and I brushed up just a brush burn, nothing bad there, but I did figure George would get a kick out of that. Here's the entrance, and you can see that 100-year-old concrete. You could see, interesting to think, they had the rebar in there, and you could see some old power that was in there. And here's another view of it right at the entrance. Yeah. And now we're putting it back. So now we have to put this thing back. So we need some construction. Here's our trucks lining up underneath. And this, very interesting, we had to get concrete back 400 feet from North Street, which is not easy. So hence cutting the trees down. That is a boom truck, which basically pumps the concrete. All that distance, this comes flat and pumps the concrete for us in order for us to restore the deck. So that same picture there. Again, safety, you see the rebar in there, keeping ourselves safe, keeping the project moving. Compliment to the framers. You don't realize when you frame a deck like this, half of it is the framing that, again, helps people. Sorry for the noise on there. That keeps everything flush. And here we are, Pinto Construction, doing our concrete. The guy in the orange hat is Drew Kosicki, great friend, and he's the boss, and he's right out there with the guys. Pump truck coming 400 feet, and there's our concrete, starting in the back and working our way forward. Here's another shot of them. And, quite an exciting part of the job when we were set to start putting things back. At the same time, we had two things going on, upstairs and downstairs. Here's underneath, and we had some abatement issues. We had lead-based paint. So again, with the help of SEG Construction, Stacy Nasinski just did a great job. SEG, thank you, and kept everybody safe, kept the residents safe, tarped things off, etc. Here we are in the putback. Now we're putting that, got to waterproof it. So here's our waterproofing membrane we have. And again, we're kind of getting on to the colder weather, which this next picture, it's ironic. This is a white membrane. It's a rubberized membrane, basically keep all the water where it should go, which is into those planting beds and then through uh, the storm sewer, etc. But here you can see we're into the winter time and coming along, making sure everything's fine there. And copper was really neat. We had to put back the original copper coping on each side of the lane. Looks fabulous. In fact, that's more, it discolors, so it doesn't, it's not as bright and sticking out right now, but nonetheless the same. And then we went in there with some polymetric sand. This is your base for our pavers, and started putting the landscape back. And here we are today with our finished product. I took this last night, actually. I went by and just said, okay, here we are. So this is Mayfair Lane as we see it. In fact, we could put everything back. The sign we restored, a lot of stuff up top there. You kind of get a feel for this little gem in Buffalo, historical gem, and again, the wonderful residents there. Here's a view of the deck. And again, this was last night, and not myself, but just some beautiful landscaping in this, English courtyard kind of feel. I like to say, I was showing someone earlier, if you looked at this and said, hey, what city is this right now? I bet you they wouldn't, it'd take a while before you say this is Buffalo, New York. Here we are, one more view, looking back at the castle, which is on the north side of the property. And I knew I was going to show this video, so hopefully I went a little slower and you could kind of get a vision there. And that's my presentation. As far as any questions, I think Dennis, back to you. I hope you're interested in that, and I hope I didn't spend too much time.
Perfect, Lou. Thank you very much. I've got a lot of questions. One is an overview. How do young people enter your field? Do they learn things in a schooling sense, or do they just have to be trained, everything like an apprentice program from your standpoint? How does that work today?
It's a great question. And nowadays, it's no secret that the trades, plumbers, electricians, HVAC, I have a great friend over at Willard Machinists. I wanted to throw a shout out to Hurdle Plumbing, Tony Cristiano. They have a great team over there, and Hurdle Plumbing did a great job on our job. They have an apprentice program. They bring people up. I know they'll go to St. Joe's. I'm a proud alumnus of there, and they try to grab kids in high school and say, hey, do you want to work over the summer? Help us out. I will say, speaking my plug for Erie Community College, there is a construction management course, a 2-year course that is great. I actually teach on the business side of things, but I'll sub a class or not. So to answer your question, Dennis, I think just there's so much work out there, and a lot of us old construction guys are very happy to kind of share the knowledge, and we'd love to have anyone interested.
I've got a grandson in that field, so I was thinking of him and how he's evolved because of working with good people in the Atlanta area.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And it is. So I also have to ask, because people will say, what part of the Bills Stadium is under your domain? Give us just a little rough idea, and then we'll go up to questions.
Sure. I was fortunate. I am fortunate to be a part of the program. I basically worked on the underground. I basically I oversaw some of the underground sanitary and sewer with the fine people at Danforth and Scott Lawn Yard, Pinto Construction again. So we would jokingly say, hey, when can I think of you at the stadium? And I said, well, it's the sewer, it's the plumbing. They said, okay, so in the bathrooms? I said, oh, no. It doesn't hit us until everything's down under the stadium. We were at the stadium 2 years ago, starting, and it was great to be a part of that. Our portion is incomplete now, but I may be on some of the finishes for some of the restaurants that are going in there. I will tell you, you hear a lot of rumors, but I will tell you, being a part of the stadium construction, it was definitely one of the highlights of my construction career. And I have to throw it out there that Mayfair Lane was probably right up there with the stadium. It was really one of those things that I'm very proud of and glad to be a part of it.
And you should be.
Thanks.
All right, Hazen, how are we doing for questions?
So I haven't received any questions from our audience yet, but I have a question.
Good.
I am curious about when you're working on a restoration project for something historical, and we're talking about 100 years ago at this point, Are there any materials that you're trying to replicate the look or some other aspect of, but you have to find an alternative for because that material isn't used anymore?
A great question. And I wish the fine people at TRM Architect were over here to answer that question, but I can answer. The concrete was pretty much similar. The flagstone, I was jokingly say, we tried to save the existing flagstone and reuse it, but when you demo it all, it really becomes unusable. So I laughed and I said, we brought flagstone up from Pennsylvania, which we did. And I said, new flagstone. But then I was thinking, well, that same flagstone was the same flagstone next to the original people 100 years. And Hazen, it is neat for me. I'm kind of a history buff, and just to think, man, 100 years ago, guys were doing this, and here I am. And in some cases, I mean, I try to do a little bit of everything. I'm out there sweeping the streets, and I'm thinking 100 years ago, guys were sweeping these streets. The copper we replaced in kind. The railings, I think, were replaced already, probably replaced in the 50s or so. So really, with the underground structure, I'm going to say it was pretty much everything was available. I think inside or maybe back at the castle, there might be some of those issues, but for us, it was pretty readily available. We did improve some things. Again, I think I mentioned we use this polymetric sand that basically is solid, but it's permeable. So it lets water through, and then we have a great drainage system there that basically drains that deck, especially when, if you think about it, the snow in Buffalo and that deck, handles that snow. And when it melts, it's all going one place, and we pretty much tied it in real well.
Awesome. Thank you.
You
I have a question here. Todd says, hiding cars from view seems like a concept that was ahead of its time in the late 1920s. Historically, is it your understanding that this was a new concept back then to build in parking underneath a complex like this?
Oh, great question. And yesterday, or well, 2 days ago, I wouldn't have known that answer, but trying to prepare myself for maybe questions like that, I did some research, and again, with the help of Kim Conrad, in that article that is part of this presentation. And if you want, everybody, you could lewiscannata@gmail.com. You can email me. I'll send you the presentation. But great question, because exactly, it's a very new concept, and they talk about it in that architectural magazine from 1930, saying this is the new thing, this is the new way, because cars really weren't that common then. I mean, they were around, obviously, we know that, but not to the extent, obviously, we are today. So yeah, this was state of the art. This was the newest, greatest thing going, and especially the community. It actually, there's a condominium element of it also, where it was one of the first where you had shared zero lot lines and separate homes, right next to each other, kind of connected by that. Great question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that is it for what I have.
Hazen, good. The idea requires a lot of maintenance, as you can testify. Is that why we didn't build a lot of these types of things? I mean, it's sort of a one of a kind two-story arrangement. At one level, I live in a condominium myself here, but I appreciate a parking area below and living above it. But was this the beginning of that thought process? Is that what you're making out, rather than everybody having their acre of land and a picket fence around it?
Well, it's funny with E.B. Green, because he had this land and he also had an adjacent property, which he built a house for. I think it was his sister. So E.B. Green controlled a lot of that land. To answer your question, being frank, I don't know. I would say why the concept wasn't. We don't see more of it, although we do. I think it's just more modern. Like I know a couple places that kind of have a similar concept, but it's not. This is 100 years old, which is again state of the art. And again, I think historically and just the architecture and the feel of the place is really wonderful.
Well, one of the ideas that in the late 19th century, early 20th century was the City Beautiful movement. And I always think of that when I look at Mayfair Lane and think, wow, that's the epitome of a beautiful residence and yet a communal sense that you don't normally have. Usually they're standalone homes. So you were incorporating beauty, European influence, obviously, and right here in Buffalo. So Lou, you've opened our eyes to something that is private at a level. People aren't just invited to go wandering around up there, but yet they see it. They walk by and they see something there, but that's about it, unless you live there or are invited by the residents. So can't thank you enough, Lou. Thank you very much for sharing your insights and the work it takes. I think of all the public art that's going on, and I've come to see buildings like this as as some sort of sculpture almost, rather than just painting public art on a wall. You see the art necessary to create the building itself and what it takes to do it. You've helped us see that just in the repair of it. So thanks again, Lou. And folks, thank you for joining us on this very special episode. Come back next week, the 21st, on Zoom, and we'll be joined by Melissa Parker Leonard. Now, Melissa is the founder of Seventh Generation Cultural Resources and Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility and Inclusion. The committee chair at the Erie County Historical Commission for Melissa's discussion of, and this is the title of her talk next week, Two Sides of the Waterway, reflecting on the Erie Canal through an Indigenous lens. And you're going to want to hear from that. I've heard it, and it's a fascinating discussion that Melissa will bring. So join us next week if you can. I'm Dennis Galucki. Be well and good day.